Thank you, thank you. So I hope you've been enjoying Eve Prague as much as I have. For me, it was awesome so far. I'm going to be talking about the Grant Stack, but first, who am I? So I'm a developer at Gitcoin. I do the full stack, so everything from the web through to the contracts, testing, everything. Atris Eve on Twitter if you want to follow me, and if you have any questions after the talk, feel free to add me on Telegram. I'll be happy to answer all of those. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Gitcoin, a brief history. So in 2017, Gitcoin is born, and it was founded with the main reason for its founding was to support open source. So I think the tagline for Gitcoin originally was grow open source. And we did that through something called bounties, which was basically a way to attach a financial incentive to complete some kind of open source issue. So projects could develop and say like, hey, here's $50 if you fix this bug in my open source project. In 2018, the seminal Quadratic funding paper was published by Vitalik and his co-authors, which introduced a novel mechanism of democratically allocating funds to public goods. And so then Gitcoin adopted the mechanisms described in this paper. And a year later, in 2019, the Gitcoin Grants program was launched. And here we are in 2023. And we've distributed over $50 million of value to all sorts of different projects, including Bankless DAO, Uniswap, POAP. Optimism was funding through Gitcoin Grants, Tornado Cash also, EFF, and a bunch of others. So this is a slide from a site that we have, the impact report. I highly recommend that after the talk you go and check it out, because it's, at least to me, it's really inspiring to see kind of what can be achieved when the community comes together and funds open source, funds public goods. And this is all great, but what's next? What's the next thing? How do we maximize Gitcoin's impact? So one of the issues of our grants program is that it's centralized, because we do all the curation, we do all the review, so we are basically the gatekeepers of whether you get your grant approved or not, which is not ideal. We also contribute, or used to contribute, most of the matching funds. We do have sponsors, of course, and we are very thankful for the sponsors, but still, we are kind of the central point of funding and also of potential failure, right? We also handle most of the marketing and most of the operations, like actually deploying the contracts, servers and everything. And it's great because it makes it easy, but it's not great because it's not scalable, right? And it's a central point of failure. So if we get somehow attacked, or if we get infiltrated by some government or something, that would be a really bad. So what we did was we decided to run partner rounds, which is basically we partner with someone outside of Gitcoin, maybe it is Coinbase, maybe it is A16Z, and they contribute the matching funds. They curate the round, so they get to decide which grants get into their round, but we still handle the infrastructure and we still handle the marketing. So it's a stepping stone, but the holy grail is the Grant Stack. So what is the Grant Stack? They are tools for communities to fund their shared needs. Notice that we are no longer constraining ourselves to public goods here, and we are kind of broadening the scope to any kind of shared need that a community might have, online or offline. So what's the vision with Grant Stack? So our vision with Grant Stack is basically take our vast experience of running the Gitcoin Grants Round for 17, 18 seasons now, and create something decentralized, create something that is truly decentralized, because a DAO is great, but as I said, we still ran all of the operations. And something that can scale infinitely, right? So we aren't the bottleneck here, and anybody can adopt those tools, run their own round, and therefore we are no longer the bottleneck, and anybody can scale this, this vision, this software on their own. And we also made it to be modular. So I'm going to tell you like a secret. The original Gitcoin Grants is one huge monolithic Django application. And over the years, it's been worked on by many, many teams, and it's kind of grown to be a real pain to like deploy and maintain. And our vision with Grants Stack is to be the exact opposite. So every part of Grants Stack is almost an independent application. It's very modular, so you can take the contracts, but you can use your own front end, or vice versa. You can take our front ends, but you can swap out the contracts for something that you developed or you adopted from somewhere else. And this is not just great because of decentralization, but it's also great because it allows new ideas to come into the space, right? So if you wanted to do a slightly different version of quadratic funding and run a round, it wasn't possible, because you would come to us and we'd be like, well, it's just too hard for us to make this adaptation to this existing system. Right now, because it's all modular and kind of built from the ground up to be modular and easily editable and adaptable, you can come in, you can fork our contracts, and you can say, I'm gonna edit a few of these files, I'm gonna kind of tailor it to what I need or what my community needs, and I'm gonna run that, and it's really easy. Before it was impossible, now we make it easy. Let's see. Okay, so what is it really? It's a software suite with everything communities need to run a successful grants program. When I say software suite, I mean a bunch of things. Mostly it's the contracts, which we call Allo protocol, which are contracts that kind of underpin this whole system. So previously, project applications weren't on-chain. It was just a database. Project approvals and rejections, managing your project, it was just like a Django application backed by a database. Right now, all of that is on-chain. The data is not stored on-chain, it's stored on IPFS. But all the project applications, managing your projects, managing your project description, all the history of your previous rounds, all the history of votes, it's all on-chain. So it's available for anyone to inspect. You can build new dashboards on top of it. You can mine the data. It's freely available to anyone. It's inspectable. It's also auditable. So if someone feels that maybe we're doing something wrong, maybe we made some mistake, they can check the chain, as we say, and prove to us, make an audit and prove to us that maybe we did something wrong, and yeah, it's all open. And then we have a bunch of front-end applications. They're front-end only, so there's no kind of server backing them, which is cool because we can deploy them on IPFS, and we already do. First of those is Manager, which is used by round operators to manage rounds. So we can create a round there, and basically it takes you from creating the round all the way to finalizing the round and funding the grantees. Then we have the Builder, which is used by grantees to build their project. So create the project, create the description, basically make their project attractive to donors. And then we have the Explorer, which is for donors to go explore the current rounds and see whether they want to donate to some projects and check out and everything. And I changed the symbol for Passport and then Europe here, because Passport is also a Gitcoin product, but it's not really like part of the Grants Stack, but we use it also. Passport, just a brief introduction, is a Sybil defense service, let's say. It's also open source, so you can also fork it, run it on your own, self-hosted basically, but most people opt to use our instance. And it allows users to collect stamps, which are basically little bits of Sybil resistance proofs, let's say. So I can collect a stamp saying I have some POAPs, or I have an ENS, or we even support centralized providers. So I have a Google account, and it builds up your score, your Passport score, and past a certain threshold that you can choose, you're basically taking the person as not being a Sybil. And so we use that. So it's kind of like part of the Grants Stack. And then Europe here. So the great thing, as I've mentioned about Grants Stack, is that it's fully open source. It's fully modular. Anybody can come in and fork it and edit it and make it their own, basically. And we want people to do that. One of the reasons why we made this wasn't just to remove us as the single point of failure, as the bottleneck, and truly decentralize the Gitcoin grants, but we want people to build, to remix our apps, to like take a bit here, and adapt it to their own grants program. Why not? We actually want people to do that, so that's why I specifically mentioned like Europe here. We want you to build. We would love you to build on Grants Stack. So what are the common traits of all the parts of the protocol that we have developed? They're all open source, and not just open source, because open source can mean I'm showing you the source, but I'm not allowing you to use it. But it's also Libre. It's a Pharaoh GPL. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's like GNU GPL, basically. So it's a copyleft license. All that can be on-chain is on-chain. So most of the actions are on-chain, like applying to a round, getting approved, getting rejected, editing your profile. However, it would, of course, be costly to store text on-chain. So we store that on IPFS, and then we store a commitment to the IPFS file in the contracts. So you can go and from the block explorer, from the contracts, you can go to IPFS and check out what the data actually is. And we try to use the latest tools and technologies so that we appeal to developers. So things like Foundry, things like Foundry, things like VM, WAGMI. We really try to be on the bleeding edge and make the software attractive not just to users, not just to round operators, but also to developers, so that they want to build on it. But we want you to build on Grants Stack, as I said previously. So please do. And now let's kind of hone in and let's see some details about the parts. So our protocol, which is the contracts, it's based on a battle-tested OpenZPlin base. It has been audited by Sherlock. There have been no high-severity vulnerabilities found, only I think one medium severity vulnerability, which wouldn't even have resulted in a loss of funds. It was just like a DDoS, so you could DDoS round creation, so we could kind of prevent someone from creating a round, but it will cost you money, of course. And the voting and payout strategies are modular, so we are not locked into Quadratic funding. It was made with Quadratic funding in mind, and it's what it does best currently, but the voting strategy is completely separate from the rest of the contracts. So you can reuse the kind of round contracts, the project registry, and then completely ditch the Quadratic funding and say, I just want direct grants. So I just want people to directly donate to project with no matching at all. You can do that really easily. And there will be some Foundry tests. In effect, I think the PR is already merged, and gas optimizations also will be coming very soon. Manager, this is the first of the front ends. So it's geared towards round operators. So you can create rounds, you can review, approve, reject applications, including bulk reviews, approvals. You can monitor in-progress rounds, so you have detailed statistics about a running round, how many people have donated, what's the estimated matching that will be taken out of the matching pool, and all sorts of stats that you might want to check out during the round. You can also finalize the round, of course, after it ends, so you can check out the results, download. We provide the results in a CSV, so you can plug it into any data analysis software you want and run some kind of, anomaly detection or anything, and basically get the data that you need, and then finalize the round with that. So usually what people do is Sybil hunting, right? And then you can also pay out grantees. Builder, as I mentioned, it's an application for projects to create a profile. So just as you had a profile on the old platform, you have a profile on the new platform, but this time it's fully on-chain. So again, other applications don't have to use our API, or we don't have to give them a read-only database credential. They can just go to the chain and get all the projects, then kind of follow that link to IPFS, get all the data. We are no longer the gatekeepers of this data. You can apply to rounds, and you can also see your stats for current, ongoing, and past rounds. So you can maybe showcase to your donors, like, hey, we've already got a lot of donations from previous rounds, and here's how we used it. Explorer is the last piece of the puzzle, because now we have a round running, now we have a project, and now we want people to donate, of course. So this application allows people to explore active rounds. I believe this is this is not the homepage. This is a concrete round from our latest grants round that we ran with the climate solutions. You can see all the info you need, like the matching size and then all the projects. There are some interesting ways that we, for example, display the projects, because we don't want to, for example, do it alphabetically, because that would favor projects that have A and B in their name or the start. And we know that the projects that you see first, a lot of people kind of donate just to those. So we do some shuffling and stuff like that. And once you pick a project to support, or ideally more projects, you can actually donate, you can send the money. The good thing, or the interesting thing rather, is that in this version of the protocol, when you donate to a project, your donation goes directly to the payout address. So it doesn't go to us, basically, to then be dished out to the projects. It goes directly to the wallet that the project specify that they want to be paid out to. And then at the end of the round, after the round is finalized, the matching goes from us, again, to the wallets. So it reduces kind of centralization risk, because the funds, if we get hacked, the only thing, or the round manager that gets hacked, the only thing that they lose are the matching funds and not the funds of the users who donated. And Passport, can't fail to mention Passport. Again, it's a very useful tool to defend your rounds against Sybil attacks. We offer it as an API, so you can create an API key, and basically you pass in an address and we give you back a score. It's like the main endpoint of the API. Of course, we have more stuff in there, but this is what people are most using it for. Like, give me the chance that this user is or is not a Sybil, basically, is what you mostly want. But it's also open source. I can't remember if it's MIT or GNU GPL, but it's open source in Libra software, so you can self-host it if you don't trust us. If you want to run your own Passport instance, you are free to do so. There's no restriction on licensing or anything like that, so you can just go to GitHub, download the code or fork the code and make it your own, deploy it, and we'll be happy for you to do so, because it, again, decentralizes the protocol. And this is it. That's the wrap. This has been Grants Stack by Gitcoin. Thank you so much, and I hope you're as excited as I am for the future of public goods funding. We have a little bit of time, I believe 2 minutes for Q&A. So if we can do a quick Q&A, and if I can't answer your question in time, feel free to, again, catch me on any of the social networks or in person. I'll be around. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Artis. Give him a round of applause. Lovely to hear at Gitcoin. We have got 2 minutes, so stick your hand up if you have a question about the grant stack. Yes.
Hey, I'm Matej. We actually distributed some like 500,000 bounties, and I would like ask if you have like the multi-currency support in that stack.
So multi-currency, as in you can donate in different tokens. Yes. So we do support that. It's up to the round operator to choose what tokens they want to enable. I think by default we enable ETH and DAI, but it supports any ERC20.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that this could be used to support any community, not just public goods funding. Could you give an example which is not public goods funding?
Sure. So this is a hypothetical example, but it's an example that I want to do. And this is a very real-world example. So I went to high school here in Czech Republic, and there is like a student council thing, right? And they have some budget for things like events, for things like art installations. And currently the way it works is that each class has like a delegate, which is one person, and then I think 4 times a year or something they like come in and vote. Which is like great, but it would be, I think, even more awesome if every student could get their own like vote, and it wouldn't be quadratic funding, it would just be quadratic voting, because that is also supported. You can plug that in, and every student could kind of vote on, you know, the art they want to purchase for the school halls, or maybe they want to do some kind of event, some kind of concert in the school or something like that. So yeah, that's a use case that I will personally try to do.
Yeah, please do it. That sounds brilliant. And I love quadratic voting is getting in there as well. I'm glad Gitcoin's getting there. Right, final round of applause, everyone, for Artis. Wonderful, thank you. Next talk will be in 5 minutes.